Very good morning, students. In your previous class, we had discussed about the question answers of chapter 8, Conservation of Plants and Animals. Hope you all have done all the work which was given in the previous class. Today we will take up a new chapter. Before starting the lesson, I want to just ask you a few questions. What you had in the breakfast today? Different answers will be coming from different person. Now can you tell me, why do we eat food? Very simple question. We eat food to get the energy. Have you ever thought of it? That how do the plants get the energy? Plants also need energy. And they are the only living things which can prepare their food by their own. And hence they are known as autotrophs. Autotrophs, heterotrophs, producers, consumers, decomposers. Everything you all have read in your previous classes. See, food is the fuel of our body. We all know it very well. And it is very essential to produce energy so that our body organs will perform in the particular and in a proper manner. Producers, they are the autotrophs because they prepare their own food by the help of the photosynthesis with the raw materials carbon dioxide and water. The consumers, herbivores, omnivores, we depend on plants directly or indirectly on the producers because we are heterotrophs. We cannot prepare our own food, and that's why we are known as heterotrophs or consumer. Now the question is, if for a small population we are talking that we need food, it's okay, we will grow some plants and we will eat that products of that plant. But have you ever thought of it? If the day by day population is growing, what will be the best alternative to provide them food so that they will get their own energy? Any idea that what we are going to study today? Today we will be starting with the crop production and its management. Basically, we are going to read about the importance of agriculture in our life. Let me tell you one story of the ancient people. You all know about the early man. What was their food habit? Did they know to cook? No. They used to hunt the animals. They were ignorant people. They were uneducated. They were not knowing anything. So what they were doing? They were just killing and hunting the animals, and they just ate the raw flesh of that dead animals. But once a time came, day by day the population of the early men was growing, and as they were continuously depending on the animal flesh, the number of the animals was decreasing. Now the problem arose that if continuously they will feed on flesh of the animals and the number is decreasing, that what will happen in the future? They had to find some alternatives. Then what they did? They started settling near the water resources and they started growing the plants which gave them food to get the energy. So from the food gatherer, they started becoming food producer. With the time, they started growing that particular plant in a large scale, which was later on termed as agriculture. Agriculture is the practice where a same type of plant is produced in a systematic manner and on a large scale. And that method of growing plant is known as crop production. So basically, today we will discuss chapter 9, crop production and its management. Now, what are these steps? How do we grow the crop and how it will be stored? In between these two steps, there are several steps are there, which is known as management. Now, let's start the discussion. Before starting the lesson, means that more discussion, what are the objectives of this chapter? Now, the objectives are, first, crop production and management. Objectives. Now, what will we learn after the end of the today's class? First, we will be able to know the different food crops and how they are produced. How different food crops are produced. Second, what are the different sources of food? Animals and plants. Third, about the steps involved in crop production. Number 4, to know more about the types of crop. Number 5, to differentiate between Rabi and Kharif crop. Clear to you? So these are the objectives that will be completed after finishing the chapter. Now, one question always used to come in my mind, and I'm sure that this question must be coming in your mind also. That what is the difference between crop and plant? Are they same or different? One sentence I want to tell you in front of you. All crops are plant, but all plants cannot be a crop. All crops are plant, but all plants cannot be crop. Could you please think in your mind that what this line says? See, what is plant? Plant is the only living things which produce their own food by the process of photosynthesis. Plants can be found in any category or form. Trees, herb, shrubs, creepers or climbers. But crop is a particular type of plant that are grown on farms for food. After the different practices involved in agriculture, farms, land, a particular plant grown on a land for food only, not for any other purpose. It is known as crop. Now the difference is clear. Next one. The crop production. Production means making. The cultivation of one type of plants on a large scale is called crop production. This one only we are going to deal in this chapter. Crop production and management. So we have to first learn that what is the meaning of crop production. The cultivation of one type of plants on a large scale. What is the meaning of cultivation? Cultivation means preparation of soil. Soil is being prepared before plantation. We will read later on. Cultivation, once again, preparation of soil. So crop production is the cultivation of one type of plants on a large scale is called crop production. Now, what is meaning of agriculture? Agriculture is the practice of cultivating land for growing crops and raising animals. Now one point I have added, raising animals. You know, our food is coming from two sources. Mostly it comes from plant, but we cannot miss animals. There are many food items that we get from animals also. So agriculture also relates with the raising of the animals. Because when the early man started growing the food or they started the practice of agriculture or crop production, after some times they also started raising the domesticated animal for different work as well as need. Clear? So agriculture is not only for cultivating crop, but it also includes the raising of the animals. Which animals? The domesticated animal, which help them in different work as well as provide different foods. Now from where this term has come? Agriculture. Agriculture it is, I think, in Latin word. That in Latin, that agri means field, cultura is cultivation. When the field is prepared for growing the crop, that practice is known as agriculture. Now one word I got when I gone through the lesson, livestock. One definition I got in one of the reference book, the practice of cultivating land for growing crops and livestock. So I thought, what is the meaning of livestock? I should also share this meaning with you. See, here what I have written, raising animals. Raising animals, or you can write here, the practice of cultivating land for growing crops and livestock also you can write in place of raising animals. The livestock means domesticated animals. Now can you tell me what is the use of agriculture? Why do we need agriculture to do the agriculture? First of all, it is a business for economic gain. It works like a backbone of the country. Number two, it provides food and raw materials. We all know this, that most of the materials for the factories in their raw form we get from the plants only. Number C, raising domesticated animals. We also depend on animals for our need. Number D, it provides the employment, that Rojgar. So these four are the significance of the agriculture. You can see here what is written here. Agriculture now is not only growing food for people and animals, but also growing plants for other requirements like fiber, medicines, flowers and ornamental plants. Clear? The practice of cultivating land for growing crops is known as agriculture. At the same time, humans also started domesticating animals for their food and their other requirements. That's why it is said that the agriculture is the practice of cultivating land for growing crops and raising animals is called agriculture. Next is, who is the father of agriculture? There was an American scientist and humanitarian who also got the Nobel Prize for his work in 1970. Remember, in 1970, the scientist the American scientist who got the Nobel Prize for his work. And what he did? He was known as the father of agriculture as well as the Green Revolution. Okay? Do you know the name? The name is Norman Ernest Borlaug. Okay? Once again, the father of agriculture, the name is Norman Ernest Borlaug. The agriculture practices involves what? Systematic plan of action. Remember one thing. agriculture always involve a plan of action which should be done in a systematic manner. The balanced supply of water. Water is a very important requirement for a good crop production. Fertilizers to replenish the soil, the protection of the crop, and the storage. These are some of the important steps that should be done or it is doing under the agricultural practices. Now, the crops are classified into two groups. They are Kharif and Rabi. And this classification is on the basis of the seasons. Clear? The Kharif the Kharif crops, they are also known as monsoon crops. Do you know why? Because it is sown at the beginning of the rainy season. That is, in between June to October. The growing time is between June to October. Once again, the Kharif crop, it is sown at the beginning of the rainy season, and that's why it is known as monsoon crops. Number 2, dependent on western monsoon. These crops need good amount of rainfall because it is dependent on the that's why it is dependent on the western monsoon. The Rabi crops. The Rabi crops are also known as winter crops. Why? Because it is sown at the end of the monsoon or beginning of winter. The cultivation period is between November to April, and it does not depend on the monsoon. Means high rainfall or good amount of rainfall is not so much important for these crops. Number 3, it is affected by the rainfall pattern. Which crop? The Kharif crop. It is affected by the rainfall pattern. Whereas the Rabi crops or the winter crops, it is not affected by rainfall pattern. Number 4, for Kharif crop, the hot weather and large amount of water is needed. Rabi crop, climate should be warm for seed germination. Means at the end of the monsoon period, that time the climate remains a little bit warm. That is very good for the seed germination. But when the seed germination is over and when it is time for the productive growth, then the climate should be cold. And cold climate to grow into the crop. So these are the differences between the Kharif crops and the Rabi crop. Name of the Kharif crops are rice, that is paddy, maize, sorghum, millets, ragi, soyabean, groundnut and cotton. These are the examples of the Kharif crop: rice, which is paddy, maize, sorghum, millets, ragi, soyabean, groundnut and cotton. Now examples of Rabi crops: wheat, barley, oats, pulses, mustard and linseed. In Arabic language, the meaning of Rabi is spring and the meaning of Kharif is autumn. And because of this only, these crops are named like this. One is Kharif because it is harvested in the autumn season. Rabi in the spring season. This winter crop, it is harvested in the spring season, and that's why this crop is named as Rabi. Once again, Kharif, the monsoon crop, it is sown when the rainy season starts. Okay, when the rainy season starts and the autumn season is about to approach, then it is harvested. The meaning of Kharif is autumn. Kharif is harvested in the autumn season, and that's why these group of crops are known as Kharif. These groups of crop are known as Kharif. Whereas the Rabi crops are harvested in spring season, means after winter springs come, and that's why these groups, the winter crops, are also named as Rabi crops because harvesting is done in the spring season. Now, next one, steps in agricultural practices. This is the each and every steps that we will study in this chapter, that how the agricultural practices is done. First of all, there is a preparation of the soil. The soil bed is prepared before the crop production or agriculture. Number 2, sowing of seeds. The selection and the sowing of the seeds into the soil. This is the second step. The third one is the soil replenishment. Means to increase the fertility of the soil, manures or fertilizers are adding into the soil. To increase the humus content, organic materials are added. That is known as soil replenishment. That we will read in further classes. Number 4, irrigation. Water is very important requirement for the good agriculture. So proper supply of water, this is the 4th step of the agricultural practices. Number 5, crop protection. When the crop blooms in a full manner, then the crop should be protected from the the harmful birds, animals and other problems. Number 6, harvesting. After maturity of the crop, the crop should be cut on time. That is harvesting. And after harvesting, the crops and the grains should be stored so that it will help in our future time also. So these are the steps in agricultural practices: soil preparation, sowing of seeds, soil replenishment, irrigation, crop protection, harvesting and storage. Now next one, the preparation of the soil. The first step that we are going to deal right now is the preparation of the soil. Preparation of soil is done by methods which is known as plowing or tilling. Simple word, plowing means loosening, ढीला करना. Tilling means leveling, to make in a level. Okay. So first of all, what happens in plowing and tilling? During the preparation of the soil, plowing help in exposing the inner layer of soil. You must have seen even in your garden also or in the flower pot. We used to dig the soil to make it loose, to increase the spaces in between the soil particles, which helps the root to breathe properly due to the air spaces. Okay, to expose the inner layer of the soil. Even the inner layer of soil, it is very fertile, which comes up to give full support in the crop production. This plowing or tilling, it is done by 3 tools. Hoe, which looks like this, plow or plow. Also it is pronunciation is plow or plow, that is hull. Cultivator. In the tractor you must have seen at the back of the tractor, this type of apparatus or machine is fixed, which is known as cultivator. So these 3 are the tools which is used in exposing the inner layer of soil, which is known as plowing. After exposing, the soil is leveled, means it is making in a plain layer, which is known as tilling, the leveling. Clear to you? The process of loosening or turning the soil is called plowing or tilling. Now what are the advantages? First, it improves the air circulation as the spaces between the particles increases, helps the root to breathe properly due to increased air space. Number 2, better fixation into the soil. You know, the root fix the plant into the soil. The root fixes the plant into the soil. So if we dig the soil or plow the soil properly, the root will firmly or strongly hold the soil and fix the plant properly. Number 3, good water retaining capacity. When the supply the water to the soil which is plowed, which is loose one, then what happens? Have you experienced when you water the plant into the pot, and if the soil is loose, the water slowly seeps down to the lower level of the soil, and that soil has some spaces in between them which retain the water. Clear? But when the soil is not loose, you must have seen the water remains on the top of the pot, just like the water logging. So due to loosening of the soil, the water retention capacity increases. Number 4, uproots the weed. What is the meaning of weed? Weed is the unwanted plant. Weed is the unwanted plant which grows into the field along with the good plants or needed plants. And this weed shares the nutrition of the soil with the growing plants. So when we dig the soil, when we lose the soil with the help of the hoe, plow or cultivator, the weeds also removed out. Uproot, ukhadna. Number 5, you must have seen also gardeners, they used to pick up the grasses from the gardens. That is the uprooting of the weeds. Number 5, increased growth of microbes. The microbes also multiply very quickly and in a number which increases the fertility of the soil. Okay. Now you must have experienced when the hoe, plow or cultivator, when the exposing of the inner layer of soil is done through the plowing method, big particles of the soil, just like the rock, it is not rock but looks like a rock, small rocks, it comes out. The large pieces of aggregated means assembled, ikattha. The large pieces of aggregated soil present as lump. Lump means in local language that dhela we called it. It is known as crumbs. Okay. So the first agriculture practices, the first step in the agriculture practices is preparation of soil, in which the loosening of the soil is done, the leveling of the soil is done to expose the inner layer of soil with some tools known as hoe, plow and cultivator. The advantages we have also learned, and we have seen that when a large piece of aggregated soil present over there as lump, it is known as crumbs. Now these crumbs are leveled. These crumbs are pressed and leveled with the help of the leveler. L-E-V-E-L-L-E-R. Leveler. Okay. Which is under the process of tilling. Okay. Once again, the crumbs are pressed and leveled in a plain surface with the help of a leveler, and the method is known as tilling. This much is in today's class. Now your homework is you have to define crop, crop production, agriculture, livestock and plowing. Number 2, you have to write down the difference between Kharif and Rabi crops. Do these works in your bio copy. Clear to you? That's all in today's class. Bye-bye.